Hello, hello, everybody. How are you guys doing? Everybody good? You guys all right? Thanks for being here. I see we've got a couple of hundred people tuned in. Please make sure you've hit the like button. It helps the channel grow and fight the algorithm, blah, blah, blah. You know the drill. Most importantly, let me know where you guys are tuning in from. In the comments, what state, what city, what country, what town, what planet you're on, and which galaxy you're joining us from. And we have spam bots in the chat, so that's also great. Dublin, Slovakia, Russia, in Moscow, Portugal, London, Malawi, Denmark, Latvia, Los Angeles, Rio de Janeiro, Germany, Somalia, Puerto Rico, Spain, planet Mars, Iowa. What? It's going too fast, man. Leeds, Tunisia, Paris, Texas, Germany, Dakar, Virginia, Sweden, Canada, California, Scotland, Jakarta, Greece, London. See, it's exploding. Belarus. Wonderful, wonderful. I love you guys. Welcome to the show, and thanks for being here. We've almost got just the right amount of likes and viewers. So we've got 350 viewers, but only 270 likes. Again, please make sure you've hit the thumbs up icon under the video. And Smith is tuning in from Phobos Moon. Very funny. Why not Deimos? Okay, so let's get down to it, man. Let's get down to it. I was just on Danny Haifong's show. We had a great time. And I wanted to come on and discuss this stuff with you because it's so. I mean, how can I describe this exactly? It's a circus. I think that's the best word. It's a circus. It's a circus. A circus. British politics is a circus. So we have a new prime minister now, and I call him British Obama, right? Because he is the first leader of color. And they want you to think that this guy is like some kind of, revolutionary thing. But he is really just part of the same old establishment. His name is Rishi Sunak. He's Indian, born in the UK from Indian parents. And he is now the British Prime Minister. Now, Liz Truss basically quit the job after 44 days. The funny thing is that neither of these people were elected. Okay? This guy, Rishi Sunak, he not only is unelected by the British people, he wasn't even elected by his own party, which is what makes this so insane, okay? Usually, they have a leadership contest, okay? So because the Tories, the Conservatives, they won the general election, it's their mandate, and they can hold a leadership contest. Well, Boris Johnson, who was Prime Minister a few weeks ago, yeah, we're going through them like socks. We have 3 prime ministers in 7 weeks. Boris Johnson got in the race, and then he pulled out. And his rival, what was her name again? Penny Mordaunt, she dropped out. So this guy was basically handed the premiership. And we're apparently a democracy, right? We have an unelected king and an unelected prime minister. But apparently this is a democracy. And by the way, we also lock journalists up in Belmarsh prison. So very democratic process, you can see, right? And I want to show you and introduce you to Rishi Sunak, because I think this guy is very, very, very interesting. When he was running for prime minister a few months ago, when it was Liz Truss and him, he basically had this air of like being extremely privileged, and he is, right? He is. But it's not about the privilege, it's about who he serves, who he works for. This guy comes from Goldman Sachs, okay? Goldman Sachs is one of the biggest banks on earth. They profited greatly from the crash in 2008. It's one of the most powerful institutions on the planet. That's who he worked for. And he was also in a hedge fund. And he's worth about 700 million pounds, right? So let me show you what they wrote in the New York Times. So his parents saved money to send him to Winchester College, one of Britain's most elite and academically rigorous fee-paying schools. It's true, right? You guys remember the Eton schoolboy accent, right? Yes, sir, boy, lovely. That's how they speak at Winchester. Yes, you can see here number 4 on the list. Yes, rather good show. Mr. Sunak also went to Oxford and then to Stanford. And according to the New York Times, he went on to make a fortune in finance, including a spell at Goldman Sachs, before winning a seat in Parliament in 2015, representing Yorkshire. Now, let me tell you a couple of things about this guy. A few months ago, and keep in mind, he's prime minister, but he didn't give a single statement, a single interview. There was no debate about his program. Like, I literally have no clue. I have a good idea what, being that he's Tory, but he didn't even give, like, make the minimum effort to give a fucking statement about his program. He just handed the premiership. But it's democratic, I promise you. So his wife is a billionaire, okay? And she's Indian, and there was like a bit of a scandal a few months ago because her father is one of the richest men in India. There's this Indian company called Infosys, okay? So his wife, Akshata Murthy, she's a fashion designer whose father, Narayana Murthy, co-founded the technology giant Infosys and is one of India's richest men. So she's a billionaire, and she has like about 0.93, so it's not even 1%. But still, she has a 0.9% share in this company, in Infosys. And she gets around like 12 million pounds a year in dividends. And in order not to pay taxes, she was registered in the UK as non-dom, which means non-domicile. And this is a little, loophole that goes back like to the 18th century or something. And so basically, while Rishi Sunak, who's now the prime minister, but he was the chancellor just before, while he was chancellor, he's making average people in Britain pay the highest taxes since World War II, since the 1940s. At the same time, his wife is like stashing away tens of millions of pounds each year, right? Like, that's already one issue, but when you're making regular people pay through the nose and you're not paying crap, that's called gaming the system. And speaking of gaming the system, he had a green card. This guy had a green card in the US while being the chancellor in the UK. What? Look, a green card means you're a permanent resident in the United States of America. In order to be the chancellor in the UK, you have to be living in the UK and working there. How can you be living in the US while you're working in the UK? And when that came out, he had to give the green card up last year in October. So I'll just go back to the New York Times article. So he and his wife, they own homes in London, Yorkshire, Santa Monica, etc., etc. And again, like we don't want to hate on this guy just because he has a good education. Nothing wrong with that. But it's what he did after college, after school, which is the concerning part. So he's from Goldman Sachs, from the hedge funds. And I actually recall this stuff they put in the article. A few months ago, there was a photo op where he didn't know how to pay for gas at a gas station, and a report that he had worn a pair of Prada loafers worth £490, so that's $555 to visit a construction site, adding to concerns that he was out of touch. Yeah, out of touch is a very diplomatic way to put it. He's a snob. Okay, there's a difference between being privileged and being a snob. Let me show you this clip over here. This is from it's from 2001. Okay, so this is Rishi Sunak in 2001. Listen to what he has to say here.
I have friends who are aristocrats, I have friends who are upper class, I have friends who are, working class, but I'm not working class.
Let's play that again.
I have friends who are aristocrats, I have friends who are upper class, I have friends who are, working class, but I'm not working class.
In the rest of that clip, what he does, he basically says, but I go and I speak to kids who are working class and I tell them I'm from Winchester and so on and so on. And, it's just amazing to me. You have so many prime ministers in the last years who haven't even been elected. Just look on the right. Prime ministers who took office without a general election. It's a ton of them, isn't it? I call him British Obama. I'll tell you why. Because with Obama, they tried playing the same game of identity politics. Like, oh, look, he's the first black man to enter the White House. He's the first black president. Oh, yes, we can. Change. And then, like, what does Obama do? Like, he like stacks the cabinet with people from Wall Street and people from Big Pharma. And then he starts these using drones more and more. The dirty war on Syria, Libya. And, you know, he basically takes these 2 wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and, like, expands them into 7 wars, right? So there's literally no sector of American industry. And when I say industry, I don't really mean industry. I'm talking about the elites who run the industry that he didn't serve, right? Whether it's the weapons manufacturers, the banks, you know, he bailed out Wall Street after the crash economy, like everybody. He paid and bailed out the people who ruined millions of Americans' lives and the world economy. And so, you know, him being black was basically like nothing. It was a farce, you know, like they used that to make the White House and the American political establishment look like it's being, you know, open-minded and progressive, but it really wasn't. He was just continuing the same policy as his predecessors, and that's Rishi Sunak. That's Rishi Sunak. You know, this guy, he might have Indian parents, but the people that he worked and works for, whether it's Goldman Sachs or... I'll read you this sentence in a second. The people in the city is basically a city of London. It's a district in London called the City of London, and it's the financial hub, right? So you have the Bank of England, HSBC, you have all these banks, and St. Paul's Cathedral and Old Bailey Courthouse. So you have all this massive power, the church, the judiciary, and the banks, the financial system, in like 1 square kilometer, and with their own police force, right? So imagine Wall Street had their own police force, separate from the NYPD, and with special status, right? Like its own borough. Can you imagine that? That's what it's like. And I want to read you the sentence here. This is from Financial News London, and they said, when speculating on what a Sunak government will be like, many in the city, so the City of London with capital C, will take comfort from his years of experience working in investment banking and hedge funds. Yeah, I fucking bet they will. Right? So it's not, you know, regular people can relax now. They can sleep at night knowing that the blowback from sanctions and the crashing pound, all of this is going to be fixed. The cost of living crisis will be fixed. No. It's people in the city. You know, hedge fund managers, bankers, they can rest easy because he's one of them. That's what they're saying. And I didn't need to read you that for you to understand. So once again, they're trying to use identity politics as a cover for a guy who basically worked for and works for white European Western capitalist institutions. That's it. Just like Obama. They're cut from the same cloth. There is no difference. Right? They serve the same people. They work with the same people. They're friends. It's all one club. It's the same club. And, you know, there are people who are saying, well, this is great because he's Indian. And obviously, India used to be colonized by Britain. And it was plundered, right? It was just 200 years of exploitation and colonialism. And, you know, we've talked about this a lot. I talk about this a lot on the channel. And yes, I understand it. Like, you know, Britain was in India, and now Britain has an Indian prime minister or Indian origin prime minister. Fine. Well, why don't, you know, there are many countries who are colonized by Britain. Why don't you give it to a Palestinian then? Since you're just handing the job out after all, right? Why not give it to a Palestinian? You know, Palestine was a British mandate. Palestinians still don't have a state because their country was carved up and given to Israeli, to Jewish settlers by the British government. Right? You want to do some form of reparations? Well, there you go. That's one idea, huh? Since you're so keen on it. But of course, they're just using this as a ploy, right? It's like, oh, look, he's the first Indian prime minister. They don't tell you, oh, he's a banker and he will serve the banking elites. I want to show you just Liz Truss, her outgoing speech. And she was prime minister for 44 days. 44 days. That's not even 2 months. And for the rest of her life now, she will receive £115,000 a year, what they call an allowance. So she worked as prime minister for 44 days, and worked as being generous. You know, even if she were there for 400 days, I don't think you could say that she deserves it, or any of them deserve it. But now she can claim that for the rest of her life. And what did she do? She did nothing. She just continued the pro-NATO policy. The war in Ukraine, the war on Russia, the same policy supporting Israel. She wanted to even move the embassy, the British embassy, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which, you know, they whine about, international law, Ukraine, it's territory, and they're fine destroying Palestinian territory. They're fine violating UN resolutions that are, that are not favorable to Israel, that's okay. Go ahead, do your thing, right? So she wanted to do what Trump did, right? All those people screaming about Trump, they're silent about her doing same thing as him. She didn't in the end, but she almost did, and now she gets to reap the benefits and fail upwards, right? So I'll just play a short clip of her leaving number 10 down the street.
I came into office at a time of great economic and international instability. Families and businesses were worried about how to pay their bills. Putin's illegal war in Ukraine threatens the security of our whole continent. And our country has been held back for too long by low economic growth. I was elected by the Conservative Party with a mandate to change this. We delivered on energy bills and on cutting national insurance. And we set out a vision for a low-tax, high-growth economy that would take advantage of the freedoms of Brexit.
Yeah, sure.
I recognise, though, given the situation, I cannot deliver the mandate on which I was elected by the Conservative Party. I have therefore spoken to His Majesty the King to notify him that I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party.
Yeah, okay. She's about as interesting as a doorknob. And her tax cut scheme, was basically like more, trickle down economics. Like, I'm going to give these huge slashed tax cuts for the richest people so they don't have to pay anything. And that's going to benefit the economy with growth and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that worked out very brilliantly. The pound is at its lowest since 1971, I think, right? Somewhere around there. So, since before I was born. That's how bad it is. And again, I wouldn't blame her only, because to blame her and the chancellor that she put in, Kwasi Kwarteng, would be to kind of omit the role of the sanctions. It's the sanctions as well, right? It's both of those things. Brexit, man, look, the EU deserves a lot of criticism, like, no doubt. But I'm really puzzled by people who thought that severing the UK from the European Union, when it's like literally next door, who are you going to find as a trading partner? You just can't replace it. And I think she wanted to do a free trade deal with Israel and Australia. Like, they're trying so bad to compensate for the free trade loss with Europe by going to the other end of the planet. It's just not happening, man. This is not the 1920s. You don't have a fleet of Royal Navy ships and an empire. Britain is just not that relevant anymore. It's just not. So I think there's just embarrassing stuff. Let me play you Rishi Sunak. He's the new prime minister, apparently. Right, so this guy's unelected, but he's the prime minister for some reason.
I'd like to pay tribute to Liz Truss for her dedicated public service to the country. She has led with dignity and grace through a time of great change and under exceptionally difficult circumstances, both at home and abroad. I am humbled and honoured to have the support of my parliamentary colleagues and to be elected as leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party. It is the greatest privilege of my life to be able to serve the party I love and give back to the country I owe so much to.
Yeah, all right, you get the idea. By the way, excuse me, I when I said earlier a free trade deal with Israel, I didn't mean Israel. I meant the Gulf countries. And of course, at the same time, she also wanted to move the embassy, and there was this whole like discussion, like, oh, well, if she moves the embassy to Jerusalem, that might jeopardize the GCC deal and so on. But, the point still stands. They're trying to compensate for it, and it's just not going to happen. It's just not working. But I wouldn't say that that's the main reason for what's happening with the pound. It's really the sanctions more than anything. And it's just so funny watching these headlines. Like, look at these headlines, man. This is from The Guardian. Rishi Sunak to become first British Prime Minister of color and also the first Hindu at number 10. Here's from the LA Times. Rishi Sunak to be Britain's new Prime Minister, the first person of color in the role. And back to the New York Times. Rishi Sunak will make history as the first person of color to be Britain's Prime Minister. Yeah, okay, great. it's like Biden's entire cabinet, right? Like which I called the Rainbow Coalition Death Cult, right? Uncle Joe's Rainbow Coalition Death Cult. It's like, oh, okay, we're going to have transgender people who can join the army now. The army that's going to be used to kill people and invade their countries and occupy them, like in Syria, Or we're going to have a black head of the Pentagon, Lloyd Austin, who is going to use the Pentagon to pursue the same crap like AFRICOM, where they've got a military presence in 51 African countries. They're continuing to occupy the Middle East. Like, how does that benefit black people in America and outside America? It doesn't. It doesn't. It benefits the weapons manufacturers. That's who it benefits. You know why? Because the color of his skin isn't the issue. It's his policies, which are the same. The policies are the same. It would be nice to have first Prime Minister of color or first black Secretary of Defense if their policies actually were in line with what you claim they are, right? That they are good for people of color. They're not. You're still continuing the policies of their white predecessors that oppress people of color in the country and outside the country. So that doesn't benefit anyone. You're using that as a cover. It's what it is, identity politics, and in a bad sense. I think identity politics originally, when it was coined, it was supposed to have a positive connotation. But today, the way that it's being used by neoliberalism to pull the wool over people's eyes and hide their actions and their policies by using people's skin color as a cover, that I think that's what gave it a negative connotation. And speaking of the Israeli embassy, Rishi Sunak, guess what? I swear to God, I said this just an hour ago with when I was having a conversation about Rishi Sunak. I wonder how long it's going to take him to make a statement in support of Israel, Britain's unwavering support of Israel. Here we go, right? Here we go. I'll show you something. This is from 24th of October. It's from today. Rishi Sunak, Britain's latest prime minister, believes there is a very strong case for moving the Israeli embassy to Jerusalem, and those who vilify Britain should be treated as extremists. Oh, man. I knew it. Like, there is no way that he could get the job without supporting Israel or supporting imperialism. It just doesn't work. Look at this crap, man. I mean, it's stunning. It's really stunning. The apartheid claim. This is Sunak, okay? He says, quote, "The apartheid claim is not only factually incorrect, but quite frankly offensive." What? No, you know what's offensive? Apartheid. It's offensive to Palestinians. You have people in South Africa who actually lived under apartheid who have said that the apartheid against Palestinians by Israel is even worse. Like, just so you can gauge, obviously, both of them are unique stories and you should give them unique attention. But, like, for people to have lived under South African apartheid, to look at what's happening to Palestinians and go, that's worse, then you should care, right? Because most of the world, they care about apartheid in South Africa and say it was wrong. At the time, not many did. And it's the same thing now with Palestinians, right? Not many want to admit that it's apartheid. It is. If you want to take all these NGOs, Amnesty International, and all these major NGOs, they say that it's apartheid, and they're mostly used as tools for regime change. I'm sorry to say, but if they even say it, I mean, come on. Let me show you another quote. Sunak says, quote, "Like any nation, Israel is not perfect, but it is a vibrant multi-ethnic democracy with a free press and the rule of law. It stands as a shining beacon of hope in a region of autocracies and religious extremists." Wow. Religious extremists. I'm pretty sure a country where Jews are viewed as superior to everybody else is religious extremism. Right? Like saying this is our land because God gave it to us and I was here 3,000 years ago. Like that's religious extremism. Israel is literally founded on religious extremism. They hijack Judaism. They hijack being Jewish as a cover to take the land, just like the Crusaders did, ISIS. It's the same trick. They take the religion and use it as a cover. And he says it's a multi-ethnic democracy. It's only multi-ethnic because there are European settlers living on land stolen from Palestinians, and they weren't able to get rid of all the Palestinians. Many of them fled. Many of them left to Syria, to Jordan, and all the neighboring countries. You even have in South America tons of Palestinians who left. And there was a secret Israeli plan to deport Palestinians to Latin America. I'm not kidding. It's declassified recently. So The free press thing, like literally everything he said in the sentence is complete horse crap. The free press is also a lie, because when Palestine was a British mandate, they had a military censor, which Israel still has to this day. So if the military want the press not to say something, they can just go and muzzle the entire press and stop them from publishing something they don't want people to know. How's that for free press? The former Chancellor and now Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has also committed to passing a bill to crack down on the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. So that's BDS. That's basically a non-violent, peaceful protest against illegal Israeli settlements, right? So if there's a product, let's say it's a chair that was made in occupied Palestine, you don't buy it because it was made on stolen land, right? And it's funny, right? Because they don't let Palestinians protest it anyway. If they take up arms, which they're allowed to under international law, they call them terrorists. If you talk about it, they call you anti-Semitic. If you want to protest peacefully just by boycotting Israeli products, then this is also anti-Semitic, apparently. You know, this is very democratic process here, right? And in the United States, it's pretty bad, too. They have... in some states, they've outlawed BDS as well. Again, it's not even a group. It's just the idea that I'm not going to buy anything that is made in occupied Palestine. That's it. But of course, you know, criticizing Israel is not allowed. And Rishi Sunak would never ever have gotten this job if he wasn't staunchly pro-Israel, right? Which again comes back to my point that if we're supposed to celebrate this because he comes from a country that was colonized by Britain and now he's leading Britain, then give it to a Palestinian, right? Why not? They won't do that, of course. So anyway, this is British Obama. I suspect he'll keep the job a bit longer than Liz Truss because he's, going to let all the nice bankers and hedge fund managers in the city of London and Wall Street sleep peacefully. But if you are not a hedge fund manager and you are not someone who has 700 million or 1 billion pounds stashed away, well, screw you, because this guy was not put in power to serve us. He's put into power to serve them, the elites, the banks, and the corporation. End of story. I see we've got how many people watching? We have about 1,000 people watching, so please make sure that you hit the like button because we've only got 600 likes. So there's about 400 of you, 300, 400 of you who have not hit the like button. It's the thumbs up thing under the video. And for those of you who just tuned in, please let me know where you're tuning in from, which city, which state. I love to shout out your countries and all that. Let me show you the next story. This is something you guys might have heard about China, okay? Give me a second. There you guys. There you guys go in the comments. Pakistan, Toronto, Kenya, France, Zambia, Morocco, California, Amsterdam, Ethiopia, London, India, Denmark, Palestine, Bulgaria, Serbia. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Lisbon, Ireland, Pakistan. Thank you, Larry Kane, for the super chat. I appreciate the donation. Sweden, Scotland, Pyongyang. Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks, Akia, I hope I said your name correctly. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate that very much. And if you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to send them on PayPal or just in the comments anywhere. I'll try my best to answer them if I see them. So let me just talk to you about China, what's happening with all right, one sec. So there's this new story coming out in the Western media about China, right? That at the Congress of the Chinese Communist Party, they escorted out the ex-president, right? So Hu Jintao, who, you know, they're basically saying like he was purged or something. I'll just play the video and then break it down for you. Okay, this is the video from the Congress. So that's Xi Jinping. He's the president, right where my mouse is, and he's been elected now for a third term, okay? And they're going bananas in the press, right? They're going bananas in the New York Times and all these Western outlets, and they're saying, oh man, like this guy, he's the biggest threat to the free world, and now he's like solidified his iron grip over China, and we have to be wary. China's the biggest threat. And you have all these people, these journalists, so-called journalists, news outlets, and intelligence officials, both sides of the Atlantic, so in the UK and the US, that are coming out in the last couple of weeks in like a choir, you know, and saying the same thing. Oh, China's the biggest security threat. China's biggest threat to the free world, blah, blah, blah. You know, Chinese communists are going to come to your house and eat your baby in front of you, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we know the whole the whole rhetoric. So this is from Sky News, okay? See, there's a focus on China this week because the 5-yearly Chinese Communist Party, CCP, so just CCP for short, the CCP Congress opens in Beijing on Tuesday, October 18th. And so they say Russia's brutal and illegal invasion of Ukraine, tearing up the accepted international order, right? You see how they always say order and not law because they don't care about the law? They're talking about Western hegemony. That's what this term means. International order means Western hegemony. Is rightly dominating the immediate foreign policy agenda of Western leaders. It is striking, however, how quickly their discussions switch to identifying another country, the People's Republic of China, as the, quote, biggest long-term threat to our economic and national security. With those words, the American FBI Director Christopher Wray concurred with an analysis by Ken McCallum, who's the director of MI5. So MI5 is basically Section 5 of military intelligence. It's the equivalent in the UK. It's the they deal with domestic intelligence matters. McCallum stated that China represents the most changing challenge we face. Okay, so that's head of MI5. He has recently been backed up by rare public comments from the heads of Britain's two other intelligence agencies, GCHQ and MI6. GCHQ is if you guys remember the Snowden leaks, Glenn Greenwald's work, they talked about how GCHQ, which is like the equivalent of the NSA, they were tapping into the internet cables and bugging them that way and so on. And MI6 is like the CIA equivalent or counterpart in the UK. So the heads of GCHQ and MI6 are saying the same thing, right? Just scroll down here. Hold on, where was I? I lost my place. Yeah, it was this one. All right, so here, this from Sky News, right? You had Jeremy Fleming, he's the head of GCHQ, who gave a rare public speech today to say the Ukrainian armed forces are turning the tide. His main focus, though, was China. Now, I've got the video. I have the speech, but it's quite long, so I'm not going to play the whole thing for you. But this was basically on 11th of October where he gave this... hold on, let me try and play this for you. There's Jeremy Fleming. Let's see what he says. Hold on.
We and our like-minded allies see technology as a way to enable greater freedoms, greater prosperity, greater global collaboration, and yes, fair competition. But the Chinese leadership's approach is to also see it as a tool to gain advantage through control of their markets, of those in their sphere of influence, and of course, of their own citizens. We and our like-minded allies see technology as a way to enable great...
Yeah, so again, it's this whole, it sounds like Trump, right? China, in the last couple of decades, has been slated to overtake the U.S. in not just in specific sectors like aeronautics, and because there was people used to say, oh, it's made in China, to mean that it's something that is cheaply made. That's not true. Right now, look at what China's building. They have high-speed rail. They're posing a real competition with Huawei, even TikTok, right? So this makes the United States feel threatened because the United States wants to maintain a monopoly on the world economy. They want to be number one, and they want not just to have the biggest economy, but in specific sectors like big tech, they want Silicon Valley to be number one. And that's why Trump basically tried to blackmail the Chinese, right? He said, like, if you don't sell TikTok to an American company, I'm going to ban it. I mean, that's... He just blackmailed them. Like, you sell it to us or it's banned. So, you know, they feel threatened by this. They want Silicon Valley, big tech to be dominated by American manufacturers and American companies. And of course, it's not just a question of economics. You know, this offers great advantages in terms of spying, right? If you've got American tech companies on your phone, they can hear what you're saying and see what you're doing. And they have been, as we know from the NSA files. So, you know, the Belt and Road Initiative is what has got these people so riled up. They hate this because China is going to overtake them in just a matter of years. China is working on the Belt and Road Initiative. Again, I was talking about this with Danny Haifong just an hour ago, so please go watch that if you can on his channel. And, you know, the Belt and Road Initiative, you have 140 countries that have already signed up. The other day, I was with John Shipton, who's Julian Assange's father, and we were doing a Q&A, and somebody asked, like, what do you think of the world situation right now? Because it looks very grim, right, with all these wars. And I was like, yeah, I agree. And then John said something which kind of, you know, it got me thinking, because he said, well, that's true, but you have positive things that are happening, like the Belt and Road Initiative, like what's happening in the East. And he's right. I mean, I already knew that, but I didn't think to connect the dots, because usually the stuff that's happening is quite grim. But it's true. It doesn't have to be this way, right? There's a multipolar order coming, and that doesn't mean that China is going to be leading it or controlling it. China is not seeking to do that, because in the very meaning of the phrase, it's multipolar. And Iran and Russia and China, they've all said this. It's multipolar. It's not unipolar or controlled by one hyperpower. And, you know, Danny raised this point that the Chinese are not even excluding the Americans. They're saying everybody's welcome. Everybody's welcome to join the Belt and Road Initiative, to join the New Silk Road. The Silk Road was basically a trade route that ran all the way from China through Asia, you know, into Syria and basically, you know, into Europe. And it's the most infamous trade route in history, because it was so central and important. And the Chinese are trying to revive that by calling it the New Silk Road. And this time it's going to be even bigger and even better. And it's going to include maritime trade as well, on a much larger scale, you know. So it's not just going to be in Asia and the Middle East. It's going to expand all the way to Latin America. You've got countries like Cuba and in Central America and Venezuela that are joining the Belt and Road Initiative. Syria, Iran, 140 countries. And that scares the West, because the West is in decline. The pound and the euro are in the gutter. You know, America, the U.S. is so desperate to stay in the driver's seat, right? It's so desperate to be number one that they're coming out and saying, oh, the Chinese are a threat. We have to give the Australians nuclear-powered submarines. We have to make a military alliance. AUKUS, the UK, the US, Australia. Right? We have to confront the Chinese, rising China, like they say, like as if it's you know, like some dragon coming out of the ground that's about to eat everybody. You know, I think it's extremely obnoxious. It's extremely obnoxious. Like, any sort of competition has to be crushed. And so what they're doing now is they're trying to paint Xi Jinping as being some evil maniac. You know, it's the same thing they did with Putin, right? Oh, he's bent on world domination. He's just evil. He just hates people in the West. He hates democracy. He's an autocrat. Blah, blah, blah. Fucking broken record bullshit. Here's from Yahoo News. Biden's national security strategy calls China the biggest threat and sees Russia diminished by Ukraine invasion. So this is October 13th. The United States considers Russia an immediate geopolitical challenge, but sees China as much more consequential as a long-term threat, according to President Biden's national security strategy released Wednesday after a delay prompted by Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February. This is the whole document. I'm just going to give you the gist of it. Okay? So Russia and China, quote, pose different challenges according to the national security strategy. Russia poses an immediate threat to the free and open international system, recklessly flouting the basic laws of the international order today. See that term again, international order? They don't say law, order. Our order, Western order. Let me continue. While China, quote, by contrast, is the only competitor with both the intent to reshape the international order and increasingly the economic, diplomatic, military, and technological power to advance that objective. Yeah. And guess what? It's better than yours or ours. I mean, Britain is part of that, right? Of course they want to reshape. Who the fuck wants to live under a jackboot of Western imperialism? That's been going on for centuries. No one wants that. You know, the UK fought several opium wars with the Chinese. I'm not kidding. This is real. This is actual history. You had the Chinese who banned opium because you had, I think, 15 million people addicted at one point. It's like an epidemic, right? So they wanted to ban the use and sale of opium, which was coming in from Britain, by British companies. And because they did that, they went to war with China twice, right? To sell drugs, to sell narcotics, to keep people doped up. Like, so that's the taste of foreign relations that China has with Britain. Buy our drugs or we will kill you. Wow, that's very diplomatic. You know, who doesn't want to live under that? That sounds lovely. And with the Americans now, who are the foremost power, right? It's basically like, just, you know, give us all your tech companies, let us use your people as like slaves for our manufacturing, and shut the fuck up. Or we'll come at you with aircraft carriers. We'll give the Australians submarines, right? Not nuclear armed, but nuclear powered, which is still significant nonetheless. It's an upgrade of armaments. So, of course, the whole world wants to change this order, man. Most countries, you know, are in the global south, and they're sick of living under the jackboot of Western European colonial powers. That's it. It's that simple. There's nothing to it, man. It's not, oh, it's democracy. No. It's they want you to fuck off. It's that simple. They just want to live in peace. That simple. Right? Whenever you're in doubt about what's happening, just pick up a map, all right, and look at the number of U.S. bases on the planet, and then you tell me what's going on. You tell me who's the threat, China or the U.S. I don't even know how many bases the Chinese have. I think it's something like less than 20, and they're legal. They're legal. They weren't put there illegally, you know. So I'll just add one more thing. You know, in typical capitalist spirit, the U.S. wants a monopoly, right? So when they say competition is good for growth, yeah, it can be. But when we're talking about world powers, the United States does not see that as healthy competition. They see it as a threat, right? So they want to crush it. Jake Sullivan, who's National Security Advisor for Biden, he said that we have entered a decisive decade with respect to two fundamental strategic challenges: geopolitical competition with China and the sheer scale and speed of transnational challenges that do not respect borders or adhere to international rules. Well, yeah. Who the hell are you to talk? Isn't this the guy who said Al-Qaeda's on our side in Syria? That's Jake Sullivan. He sent that to Hillary Clinton in an email. And then he says, including pandemics, inflation, climate change, and food and energy scarcities, quote, the post-Cold War era is definitely over. I don't know, man. I mean, a lot of people see what the U.S. is doing in China as a new Cold War, and it certainly is. I have to agree. You have a competition between two powers, and the United States is aware that Western hegemony is, decreasing, is falling, and their last ditch, their last ditch attempt is to try and get, sacrifice Europe and deindustrialize Europe in order to save the U.S. But I don't think it's going to work. And, it's looking so bad that just consider this last thing. It's looking so bad that even the Saudis, who are supposed to be America's bitch, okay? Or maybe it's the other way around now. But they're supposed to be a client state, right? They give the Americans oil, and they sell oil to everybody else in dollars to prop up the dollar, and then they get weapons. Even the Saudis are saying, you know what? We're not going to produce more oil just so you can win the midterms. We're looking towards China, towards Brazil, India, South Africa, Russia. Those guys look like they have it on lock, and we want to join the BRICS. So that is unprecedented. And it kind of gives you an idea, a sense, a taste of the gravity of the situation and how it's looking from the U.S. viewpoint. Not so good. Not so good. And just one last thing, I'll just finish by debunking this story about Hu Jintao being purged. The guy literally came back after being escorted out of the room, as they said, and he voted. Look at this. So this is from Kiawe Wong. He says, Hu Jintao returned to Congress and voted after having some rest, devoting oneself to one's duties. No one, not even Xi, so that's the current president, nor his own health can stop Hu from dedicating his life to his country and his people. Here's the video. There he is. He's voting. So please explain that to me. Like, if this guy was allegedly being, purged and escorted out by, the security services, why would they let him back into the room to vote? And why would they do that? Why would they have done that in front of all these cameras in the first place and thousands of people? This doesn't make any sense. It's just typical Western bullshit. They think everything that happens in another country is autocratic and it has to be, it's authoritarian and fascist and blah blah blah, and and the West is pure and moral. It's this binary thinking, right? We are the good people and everybody else is evil. That's it. Well, I'm sorry, that's not how it's going to ride. It's not going to how it's go. It's not how it's going to go. And with this multipolar world, I'll just say one thing, man. I same thing I told Danny. I don't know if it's going to be a perfect world. I doubt that. I don't know if it's going to be a good world. But this unipolar Western hegemonic rule has got to go. It's just got to go. It's destroying the planet. In every sense of the word, destroying the planet. It's funny, man. They're so fucking scared of China. Like, the Chinese are building fucking bullet trains, and in England, you need like 8 hours just to get from London to, I don't know, like to Cornwall or something, like running on these. In the US, the same thing. There are these old ass trains, and to be fair, it comes from, the internet is the same thing in the US, because the US was one of the first countries to have internet. They haven't changed it since, and that's a problem. So the infrastructure is crumbling, it's getting old, and the Chinese are going wild, man. They're building bridges, trains, you name it, they can build it. And that's why they're jealous, they're scared. Philip Nick says, this is a pre-record, it's not even live. Of course I'm fucking live. Thanks, guys, for hitting the like button. I appreciate it. And we got some donations. Let me just read them to you before I go to the next one. We've got a sticker donation here from Darren. Darren says, it looks like Rishi Sunak is just another Blair, Obama, Macron. Sadly, we are now stuck with two Blair bots, one leading the government and one leading the opposition. Thank you for mentioning that. I knew there was one thing I was forgetting. Just one thing I wanted to add. There are some people, like the head of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, who are saying that it's time for a general election. It's not fair to just give the job to Liz Truss and then give it to Rishi Sunak and have this internal leadership contest in the Conservative Party. And again, with Sunak, the contest didn't even take place. There's just no one who Johnson and the other one dropped out, so he's just given the job. And the problem is that if you did have a general election, which would be the right thing to do, you wouldn't get a better result, because the Labour Party is so alike to the Conservative Party that they're completely indistinguishable. And you need look no further than the slew of bills that were passed by Parliament in the last year and a half. The Spy Cops Bill, Overseas Operations Bill, Nationality and Borders Bill. They basically just passed the most authoritarian crap I have ever seen in my life. And apparently it's still a democracy. And guess what? Labour let that happen. They either voted for it or just like stepped aside and let the bills through. So what's the difference? What are you going to get? The Labour Party doesn't have a left anymore because they purged it. They got rid of Jeremy Corbyn, Chris Williamson, anybody who is pro-Palestinian or to the left of them, they're gone. So it's kind of like in the US now. You just have two right-wing parties. You have the Blairites who've taken back control of the Labour Party, and you're left with choice between a shit sandwich and diarrhea soup. No thanks. Motherfuckers. Man, I gotta be honest, it's it's just tragic, like seeing this shit. You know, I sometimes think to myself, the politics in America and in the UK, why does it have to be this way? Why does it have to be this way? Is there really no other way? Do we always have to have these fucking bankers and snobby elites, you know, worth billions of pounds in the driver's seat? Is it always going to be like, why can't we have some nice things? Why can't we have nice things? Why is it the same shit over and over and over and over? There's got to be a better way, man. There has to be a better way. And this is for the good of the world, because American and British foreign policy are aggressive, they are detrimental and offensive, and it's about bullying the rest of the world. So, you know, I was just thinking to myself yesterday, it's funny, man, because you know, they try to do regime change in Iran, or they try to do regime change in Syria. Man, if anyone has the right to do regime change, which I'm not saying they do, but if anyone could make that argument that it's about security, well, guess what? It's the other way around. You know, the Iranians can say, we need to do this because you guys keep stealing our oil and attacking us since 100 years. Syria, the same thing. Iraq, you know, there are many countries who could argue for regime change in the West and actually call that self-defense. Not saying that it's right, but, you know, the whole situation is upside down. You got powerful countries who are secure and safe and rich and stinking rich and have everything they could possibly want and wish for, bullying tinier countries and then calling it self-defense. All right, what's our next segment? This is going to be a good, fun, interesting one. I'm going to read some of the donations we got here. We got one on PayPal. This is from just a sec, it's loading. This is from Abdi. It says, "Thank you for your efforts. Blessings to you. Blessings to you as well. I appreciate that very much." We have a donation on GoFundMe. I'm trying to read if there's a note or something. It's just showing me the name. I think this is from... Who is this? From Louis. Louis, thank you very much for the donation on GoFundMe. I appreciate that. You're very kind. And I'm checking my email, so it's not really showing me the notes sometimes. But I thank you regardless. And thank you in the super chat on YouTube. This is from Candace Strike. Here we go. It wants me to do the Eton thing. What a splendid performance on Danny's show, boy. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, rather splendid. It's rather splendid indeed to have Sunak. Yes, jolly good chap. Went to Winchester. Yes. Rishi Sunak. So, you have these boarding schools in the UK, which, you know, when you say boarding school, you're usually talking about like an elite high school, basically, in the UK. And, I mean, not all of them, obviously, but when you talk about Winchester, you talk about Eton, yeah, these are elite schools. And usually you'll find prime ministers and so on, they'll have gone to these schools. And again, like, who cares? That's not the point, really, because they're, you know, it's their record afterwards, which is the issue. Right? It's not the education. Like, no one can blame you for having a good education. But if you use that to then like further prop up the same, you know, institutions, banking institutions and corporations, that's the fucking issue. That is the issue. And this guy's like no different from, you know, from any of them. So that's the issue. Rather splendid indeed for the city. Yes. All right, let me show you something over here. This is... Yeah, I just want to show you a short clip, okay? This is something you guys might have seen. All right, give me a moment. I want to show you this clip. This is from Jeffrey Sachs. So he's a professor at Columbia University, and he was at he was speaking at a forum, and just watch it and then we'll discuss, okay?
The most violent country in the world in the 19th century, by far, was perhaps the most democratic or second most democratic, and that was Britain. You can be democratic at home and ruthlessly imperial abroad. The most violent country in the world since 1950 has been the United States. It's been by far involved
Jeffrey,
in more
stop
wars.
now.
In more
Let's
wars.
Jeffrey, I'm your moderator, and it's enough.
Okay, I'm done.
Wow. Jeffrey, I'm your mother, and you need to go to your room. Speaking to him like he's a fucking child. Do you see how we cut him off? Like, soon you start speaking the truth. Oh, well, we have a connection problem. Bye. Yeah, no, your time's up. Sorry. You can't say that. It's infamous free speech in the West. So he's right. He's absolutely right. And when he's referring to Britain in the 19th century, I mean, this is... I'm assuming he's referring to things like Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights, and so on, right? You had certain reforms in the UK, and again, the reasons they came into place are not always in favor of the public. But basically, habeas corpus, you have the body, so things that you could be let out on bail, that you had certain rights, because the UK doesn't have a constitution, but it has a stack of documents, right? Like the Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights, and so on. So the parliament in the UK and the judiciary at that time were considered quite modern. And again, it doesn't mean that the UK was necessarily democratic just because of that. I would argue it was not, and it still is not. And I'll tell you why in a second. But Jeffrey Sachs is completely right, because you can be a democracy at home or claim to be a democracy and still be authoritarian and imperialist abroad. And that was the case with Britain, and it's now the case with the UK, with the US and the UK at the helm. So, I mean, people want to, they have like a very simplistic view of things. They think that democracy is something inherent to Western countries, right? If you ask people, is France a democracy? They'd say, yeah, it is, and you have... Liberté, égalité, fraternité. So liberty, equality, and fraternity or brotherhood, and that since the Belgians as well, the Netherlands, Germany, people would look at that and say, yeah, those are democracies. But the thing is, you look at their behavior outside, it's certainly nothing reflective of democracy. It's subjugation, right? When you go to another country and you steal people's resources and you teach them, well, not teach them, you enforce your culture on them and erase their culture, and you move them around and uproot them and kill them and treat them like they're inferior. That's not democratic at all, is it? It's exploitation. It's colonialism. And all of these countries that I just mentioned, right? Belgium, Netherlands, Britain, France, Germany, Spain, Portugal, they're imperialists. Right? They went all over the place, massacring people in the Congo, in India, you name it. In Latin America, they conquered several continents and massacred the people there and stole their resources, while at the same time at home pretending to be, in an era of enlightenment and being advanced and so on. And the problem is that to this day, that dynamic is still correct. It's still true, because you had decolonization, which maybe you could say started in 1945, but it didn't finish. It certainly didn't finish, because, right now there are U.S. troops stealing oil from Syria. They're occupying east of the Euphrates. It's about roughly 1/3 of Syria. It's the most important part of Syria. It has all the oil and all the crops are grown there, the breadbasket region. So that's colonialism, right? That you're plundering and occupying a country. I don't see how it isn't. The French, they still exert influence over African countries, which they have for centuries, right? Either with French, they tried to say it's cultural influence. Yeah, well, usually when you had French cultural influence, it was at the detriment of that country's culture, right? So in Syria, if you spoke Arabic, they'd slap you for speaking Arabic in school. In Syria, they want you have to speak French. So, they still maintain French culture in Africa. They control the money, the monetary policy of 14 African countries. They are taking the resources from those countries and using them in France. Earlier with Danny, I brought up this example that in Niger, the French are extracting uranium, which they use in France to power their homes. 70% of electricity in France comes from nuclear. And how can they do that without this uranium from Niger? They can't. And do you think people in Niger are benefiting from that exchange? No. They don't even have regular electricity, like a power grid, never mind a nuclear one. How is that fair? How is that not exploitation? It is. It is exploitation. They give them shitty deals, and enforce those deals upon them. And, they also like to portray it as aid. It's not aid. You're not helping anyone except your own pockets. So you still have a neo-colonial relationship, and this is important to remember, because even if you want to live in La La Land and believe that Western European countries are democratic, well, their foreign policy certainly isn't. And I would go back to what I was saying before, which is that in the UK, it's not a democracy. Like, we just had a new prime minister put in power who was not elected by the British people or even his own fucking party. Usually, the leadership contest, this farce, did not even take place because everyone dropped out. He was just handed the job. And then the new king, like, we have a king. Who is this guy? Who is this guy? I don't understand where these people come from, and they're like the leaders. For what? What do they have in common with regular people? They have nothing in common. Apparently, that's how it is. We have unelected king, unelected prime minister, and on top of that, a hallmark of a democracy is what? It's a free press, right? And again, I just bring up Assange. Like, there's just no free press in the UK because they're holding him in a prison, in Belmarsh prison. And the British judge, I saw her in court read out her ruling, and she basically justified the charges against him. Because she blocked the extradition. She said, okay, you're you're not healthy enough to be extradited because you'll commit suicide, which is true. That's a concern. But when it comes to the charges, like, oh, you're a spy, you're a computer hacker, she agreed. She agreed with that shit, and she found equivalence under the Official Secrets Act, right? So in the US, there's Espionage Act, and you could say the equivalent, the rough equivalent in the UK is the OSA, Official Secrets Act. And she basically justified it. She said, yeah, all these charges from the Department of Justice against you make sense, because in Britain, this would also be illegal, and that's a prerequisite for extraditing someone, right? If country B wants to extradite someone from country A, the crime they're accused of must be a crime in both countries, right? It makes sense. And so that's what she did. She basically justified, said, yeah, what you did would be a crime in the UK as well. So that's why I'm sending you there. She said, I would have sent you there if you were healthy enough, right? And the problem is this sets a legal precedent. So in the future, you have other judges looking at this and saying, yeah, well, in the Assange case, this kind of national security journalism was viewed as, a hostile act. It was viewed as espionage. So I'll set you along your way to some supermax prison. You see how dangerous this is? And that's not democratic. That's not democratic by a long shot. And it's just one case, but I give this, if I can say so, it's my field of expertise, and I've covered the case in the court, and I know a lot about it. And so every day or every session in court was, it was just like it wasn't something you would see in a so-called democracy. It was the opposite of that. It was the state locking up a journalist who was accused of espionage. Like, that's textbook authoritarianism. Right? What do you do when you want to lock a dissident up, or a journalist up, or a political opponent? You say they're a spy. You say they're working against the state, and you put them in prison. And that's what I saw firsthand. So I'm reporting it to you, and I'm telling you what's going on. And there's nothing democratic about that. I see we got 1,000 people watching. Thank you very much, guys. Please make sure you've hit the like button. I'm just checking if you guys have any questions or super chats on PayPal or something. We've got thank you very much to Clodex. Clodex just raised their pledge on Patreon. I appreciate that, and I'll play you a crab dance in just a second. If you Just give me a second. All right, guys, I have to plug the show, so let's do it. If you enjoy my work and you would like me to continue, I need your help. Please consider supporting the show on PayPal or Cash App or Venmo. You can just scan the QR code with your phone with the camera, and it will take you to the link. And it will take you to the link, and then you can send a question or a comment or whatever, and I'll try and read it out. So in addition to PayPal, there's also Patreon. This is the goal, 900. We're trying to get to 900 members, and you can donate $1 a month or $2, or I guess in this climate, you're better off donating rubles, since they're worth more. I'm just kidding, but I will play a crab dance every time someone joins. And let me read this donation to you. We just got one now. This is from Marissa. Hey, Marissa. Thank you. It's good to see you. Marissa is telling me, so I work for a university, and we had a large staff meeting, excuse me, where higher-ups presented on how Lockheed Martin is our biggest donor, and we are committed to building a talent pipeline with them. Then afterwards, we had a presentation on how much the university values diversity, equity, and inclusion, neoliberalism at its finest. That's really funny. That's really funny. A talent pipeline. They basically just want people to come build them bombs, It's sad. It's sad. If you look at some of the best universities in the US, like MIT, do you know who their biggest donors are? It's the Pentagon. Yeah, it makes sense, because obviously when you want to advance your ordnance and weaponry, you have to invest in research and development, R&D. Obviously, though, this is not solid foreign policy, because you are going to kill people and piss them off. It's sad, right? It's sad that universities, which are places of education and enlightenment, are abused by the military-industrial complex. That's what I'm trying to say. There's a difference in doing research to defend yourself and then doing research to make money and war, like for just profiteering. That's disgusting, right? So I'm sad you had this experience. That's really crap. It's good you noticed what they were trying to do, right? Because most people, it goes over their heads. They don't understand what they're trying to do, but they're basically, like you said, it's a pipeline. So yeah. I'm really loving this development, right? Rishi Sunak, Christ. Who wears Prada loafers to a construction site? Like that's not even, it's not only disrespectful, it's just bad taste. Like these people, they have such little concern for money, they just like piss it away, Isn't there a phrase like money doesn't buy taste or something like that? Anyway. Thank you to Beer and Flies for the donation. I appreciate that. And we also have one from Devin Wolf. Thank you, Devin. You're very kind. We have another donation here from Victoria. Thank you, Victoria. I don't see any notes or questions, so I'm just reading the first names, and that's it. And thank you very much to Susie for the donation. Susie says, very grateful for you, Richard. Please keep going. Thank you. Your kindness sustains me, and unfortunately, I will keep going. I was just saying this like earlier that these topics are really depressing in a way, but we have to talk about it. So, Faizan says they assassinated a journalist for exposing the elite mafia and military of Pakistan. He exposed corruption, money and money laundering. Hold on, I think. Wait. Did this happen today? Was it Sharif? It was Sharif, right? Arshad Sharif, my God. They killed him in Kenya. They assassinated this guy in fucking Kenya. I mean, no disrespect to Kenya. I'm just the distance. Like, can you imagine being chased from Pakistan to Kenya? Like, that shows you how determined they are to kill this guy because he was exposing corruption. That's insane. And I saw Imran Khan, who was the prime minister, until they ousted him. He posted about Sharif, about I'll pull up his picture. Here he is, Arshad Sharif. Okay, 1 second. He posted about him today, and that's him. He left Pakistan in May after complaining about being harassed by the authorities. They say he was shot dead by police at a roadblock. He had previously been in the UK and Dubai before traveling to Kenya. It is not known exactly what he was doing in the East African country. Well, hiding, by the looks of it. Man, poor guy, you know. And by the way, speaking of Imran Khan, guess what? They screwed him too. He's barred from running for office. I was just talking about him the other day. I was just explaining this whole situation to you the other day, and I've been talking about Imran Khan for months now. So, former Pakistan Prime Minister barred from holding public office. They got rid of him. They screwed this guy because he's so popular. They know he would win an election in a landslide. So they had to play dirty and get him barred. They say Mr. Khan had been accused of incorrectly declaring details of presents from foreign dignitaries and proceeds from their alleged sale. The gifts included Rolex watches, a ring, and a pair of cufflinks. Are you serious? You got this guy barred from running for public office over a fucking watch? That is the least corrupt thing I have ever read about a politician, and they're still going after him. A watch? What is wrong with you? Man, they know that this guy would win. Like, the people that come to him to watch him speak in Karachi, Islamabad, Lahore, it's too much. It's too much. And they played dirty a few months ago. They got people to defect to the opposition, and there was a vote. Right? And he tried dissolving the parliament, didn't work, and then they said, oh, you're violating the constitution. So look, let me just break down what's happening. They've accused this guy of manufacturing a coup, which is not true. They said he's pretending the U.S. wants him gone. They want him gone. He has a letter, and he threatened to publish this letter from the Americans, and the High Court in Pakistan classified it. So if that letter's fake, why would the High Court classify it? It's because it's real. And he's on to something. So the Americans want him gone. And when he said this, the Americans are trying to get rid of me. They said, oh, no, you're delusional. That's not true. Then they accused him of violating the Constitution. And then they accused him of terrorism, of being a terrorist, which would get him barred from running for public office. And now they're saying, oh, you didn't declare a watch. So you're barred. I mean, look, they're trying every goddamn thing they can think of to make sure he doesn't return to power. Man, that is, come on. You see how desperate they are? And this is classic, this is 101. You want to get rid of somebody in another country, you find the dissidents and the opponents, and you rile them up against him. So that's what they did. And you see this everywhere. You go to Miami, what you're going to find in Miami? Cubans who hate the Castro revolution, right? And you use them, literally, they even tried to get them to invade, right? Bay of Pigs. You use them, those Cubans, against the Cuban government that you want to replace. You use Syrians in exile against the Syrian government. Iranians in exile, you use them against the Iranian government. Venezuelans, again, in exile, use them against the Venezuelan government. This is the same shit over and over. In this case, not all of them were in exile. Many of them were still in the country, right? Many of them politicians. But I'm not saying they were bribed or something, but I'm just saying that the United States and the UK, they have a knack for going to countries and trying to, basically exploit unrest and use opponents and get them to their side. Something else that comes to mind in Iraq when they invaded in 2003, they claimed that there was evidence of these weapons of mass destruction, and they were building mobile trucks that could build, like, you know, like Breaking Bad or something. They can cook up like they can cook up bubonic plague or anthrax in the back seat, you know. And you know what the source for this was? It was some Iraqi taxi driver who had left Iraq and hated Saddam. Like, I mean, they just get people who will make anything up to get the Americans to invade or to try something there. Like, of course they're gonna tell you that. And I'll just say one thing, man. You know, well, that's it. That's it. I'm done. that was my point. Thank you very much. We have a donation from Jenny on Rockfin. I appreciate that. You're very kind, and thank you to everyone who's tuning on Rockfin. And I promise I'll play a crab dance, so I'll do that in just a second. I just wanted to see, we got... oh, well, here we go. This is from Naveed. Naveed said, please talk about Pakistani investigative journalist shot dead in Kenya because he fled his country. Well, I just did, but I appreciate the donation, and I hope I covered everything. I will do another segment on this probably next time. I'm just reading through this thing with Khan because the rule is government officials in Pakistan have to declare all gifts, but are allowed to keep those below a certain value. In some cases, the recipient can buy them back at around 50%. I remember Mike Pompeo, he stole something, then he got a gift, and then he didn't declare it and took it, or what was it again? Again, you know, I don't give a crap about this. I don't care what Mike Pompeo, what gift he got and refused to declare to the State Department. It's fucking irrelevant. You know what I care about? I care about this guy running the CIA and, you know, like trying to kill journalists or putting sanctions on Syria and Iran. Like, you know, like something of substance. But nevertheless, there was something with a gift. I don't remember what it was. Japan's pricey whiskey. Yeah, Japan gave him a bottle of whiskey. That's it. Anyway, let me play Crab Dance. Thank you to everyone who's supporting the show. Let's go.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard. And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead. You have fucking crossed the line. Claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch off.
Thank you for Iron Dome, which is a technical marvel.
والله انت كلاب بصراحة يعني. ماشي نشتغل عادي.
We lied, we cheated, we stole.
China.
And you ain't black.
There's always the macro and then there's the micro.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
You talking to me?
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'll have two number 9s. Number 9 large.
we got him.
I told myself, I know it's not.
I've fallen and I can't get up. Disgusting!
Why you texting? Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. Okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you!
Hey. Thank you very much, guys. Again, one more time, I'm going to plug the show. I have new merch coming out, but if you want to buy Uncle Joe's Rainbow Coalition Death Cult, then it's right over here, store.richardmedhurst.com. And here we go. Again, like I said, I'm more... Oh, there's a... Look, there's a discount code. It's Corn Pop. Corn Pop is the discount, 20% off. I forgot about that. Okay, guys, it's Corn Pop. You see it up there? Corn Pop was a bad dude. So yeah, I did a bunch of stuff here. There's Hillary Clinton, Chillin' and Killin'. There's The Lion, Chanclas for All, a fine collection of neocons, you know, Cheney, Bush, and Uncle Joe's Rainbow Coalition Death Cult. So I'm gonna start wearing this stuff more because I completely forget to even get it for myself. I got the t-shirt, but not the hoodie. There you go, guys. I have more stuff coming for you. That's one way to support the show. And I'll leave the link below. It's store.richardmedhurst.com. And if you are able to, and you'd like to, just please consider donating on Patreon for $1 a month or £2 a month, whatever you want. And again, I don't do any like exclusive content or stuff. Everything I do is free. And if you're able to support, then I'm grateful and I'm very thankful. There's also PayPal and CashApp and Venmo, and I'll put that up on the screen. There's a QR code. I really want us to get to the goal of 900 because we are somewhere, I don't know, we're floating around somewhere at 850 or something. So, hold on, let me check. Where are we at right now? Maybe Claudia can fill me on the number. I thought it's like, we're 848. Okay, guys, 848. We are 2 members away. We just need 2 people to subscribe on Patreon, and then we've hit the goal. We're at 848, and we're trying to get to 850. So just 2 people. I'm gonna stay live until we hit the goal. Not going anywhere. So there you go. Let me see. Let me read the comments. Let me see if you guys got any questions or something. Dante says Zelensky's dirty bomb is his own mouth. Okay, so there's some story about a dirty bomb. Do you want to go through it together? When I saw dirty bomb, I thought of Iraq because there was hold on, I'll explain it in a second. But let's pull up the new one about Ukraine. Okay. Keep in mind, I haven't gone through this yet, so we're going to do this together. Okay? We're going to explore it together. So there's this new claim from Russia that the Ukrainians are planning to use a dirty bomb. And when I saw dirty bomb, the first thing I thought of was Iraq, because I remember back then on TV, you had this claim in the UK and the US that, you know, Saddam has weapons of mass destruction and he has all these variants, right? He can cook up anthrax and bubonic plague in the back of a truck like Breaking Bad. You know, he has underground facilities, and he's also planning on giving it to Al-Qaeda, and he has dirty bombs. So that's a bomb that contains radioactive material, okay? And now, turns out this isn't about Iraq. It's about Russia and Ukraine. So let's go through together. Here's the BBC article. I know some of you are rolling your eyes. Oh no, BBC. Yeah, I'm rolling them too. Ukraine war. NATO denounces Russia's dirty bomb claim. So let's see what's going on. NATO's Secretary General has warned Russia over its quote-unquote false claim that Kiev might use a dirty bomb, conventional explosives laced with radioactive material. Stoltenberg tweeted that the NATO allies reject this allegation and Russia must not use it as a pretext for escalation. The Russian defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, made the dirty bomb remarks in a call with his UK counterpart, Ben Wallace. So that's interesting that the Russian defense minister is calling the British one. I saw Lloyd Austin, who's the head of the Pentagon, so Shoigu's counterpart, also holding a call with him. Let me pull that up quickly on Twitter. And I think maybe he called him to talk about this dirty bomb. I'm not sure. 1 second. Here's the tweet. This is oh no, this is a bit old. Hold on, that's old. I'm not talking about this one. Christ, that's like from 8 months ago. Yeah, all right. There we go. This is the one I'm looking for. So this is 23rd of October. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says, quote, I spoke by phone today with Russian Minister of Defense Sergei Shoigu, who requested a follow-up call. I reject any pretext for Russian escalation and reaffirm the value of continued communication amid Russia's unlawful and unjustified war in Ukraine. Yeah? That's great. How about you get out of Syria too? That's unlawful. No, but seriously, like, what I'm trying to tell you guys is that the Russian defense minister has basically been calling up his counterpart in the US, in the UK, and other countries to talk about this dirty bomb. And I don't think I've seen something like that in this war, where the Russian defense minister is trying to speak with his counterparts, all of them, and warn them about something. So that's interesting. That's interesting. You could make you could reach 2 conclusions based on this information. You could think that, okay, well, he must be serious. You know, if he's calling these people up who are actually really his enemies, and he's calling them up, what's going on here? Is it a ruse, or is he serious? I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but let's continue. So Ukraine condemned the remarks. Zelensky said this meant Russia itself could be preparing an attack of this kind. Yeah, I knew that. I knew he'd say that. On Sunday, Mr. Shoigu... Oh, there we go. This is what I was just telling you. So he called the French, Turkish, and American defense ministers. He provided no evidence to back up his accusations. He said he was concerned about possible provocations by Kiev involving the use of a dirty bomb. Other top Russian commanders made the same allegation. But in a joint statement, the French, British, and American foreign ministers said they reject Russia's transparently false allegations that Ukraine is preparing to use a dirty bomb on its own territory. So they're saying that, military analysts are chalking this up to Russia just, being a sore loser. They're losing ground, and so they're trying to make up this dirty bomb thing. That's their take on this. Since Russia invaded Ukraine in February, 30-nation NATO has provided Kiev with billions of dollars worth of weapons and military training, but refuses to intervene directly with air support or troops, as Ukraine is not a member. Christ. I mean, you just kind of said they're intervening directly, but okay. Zelensky accused Russia of being the source of everything dirty that can be imagined in this war, and he said Russia was threatening the world with radiation disaster at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, which it had captured, and also spoke of Moscow's threats to detonate a major dam in southern Ukraine. Okay, look, man. Let me just tell you what's going on here. Let's look at the evidence. So far, we have had a couple of escalations in the war. The Crimea Bridge was blown up with a truck bomb. The Nord Stream pipelines were blown up and sabotaged. And all evidence points to these being man-made events and to being therefore sabotage and perpetrated by Ukraine. The Ukrainians basically admitted that they blew up the Crimea Bridge. I have the video of the Foreign Minister of Ukraine literally saying that on tape. And before that, we had the SBU, the Ukrainian security services, basically admitting to it the day it happened. Zelensky as well. They joked about it in a way that indicated that they were behind it. And like I said, the Foreign Minister of Ukraine himself on tape saying we blew it up. What more evidence do you need? It was Ukraine. So, again, truck bombs, Al-Qaeda style truck bombs are in now. All right, they're in. Very fashionable these days. So you have several significant escalations in the war, acts of sabotage, and Ukraine was behind them. So logically, who is most likely to be behind a dirty bomb? Just logically. And when I'm seeing the stuff about the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, let me just remind you, at the start of the war, when the Russians first took the plant, this is the biggest nuclear plant in Europe, they also accused the Russians of firing at it. They said, oh, you're endangering the plant, you're going to cause a nuclear meltdown, blah, blah, blah. And it turns out that several of the reactors weren't even online, and Russia never fired on it. They had fired something at a neighboring barrack or something. Not barracks, but it was like a tiny hut, right? So again, that was a false claim. The Russians never fired at the nuclear plant. Now, obviously, I think everyone would prefer that nobody fires anything anywhere near a nuclear plant. Sure, I get that. But that was a fake claim which they made. And again, I see Israel sabotaging Iranian nuclear sites all the time. No one gives a crap about that, Nuclear disasters are cool in Iran if it's done by Israel. So I really doubt the Russians are trying to cause a nuclear disaster at Zaporizhzhia. This is nonsense. That's nonsense. And when it comes to a dirty bomb, why would they... The Russians have nukes. Okay, they have actual nuclear warheads that are better than anyone else's, and they have more of them than anyone else. Why would they use a dirty bomb? I don't know. I don't know any acts of sabotage in this war by the Russians. The Russians, when they do something, they do it out in the open, right? The ones that are doing sabotage and pursuing that line of warfare. It's mainly, you know, it's mainly NATO and the Ukrainians. It's let's go after Russian generals with the help of U.S. intelligence. Let's sink the Russian flagship in the Black Sea. Let's do Nord Stream. Let's do the Crimea Bridge. That was Ukraine. So it doesn't, the behavior doesn't match Zelensky's claim that Russia would be pursuing dirty bomb. I don't see this, man. I hope for everybody's sake that there won't be a dirty bomb, because that is a very, very, very significant escalation. I mean, that's way worse than Nord Stream and Crimea. Like, if that happened, you could have a nuclear war, maybe. So I'm really puzzled what's going on. You know, what do you guys think? Tell me in the comments. Like, why would the Russian defense minister be calling Lloyd Austin, Ben Wallace, and the Turkish defense minister and telling them about this? Is he serious? Is he bluffing? What's going on? In any case, this is a breaking story. It's just from the couple of past hours, so I'm just giving you all the information that we have, and just trying to pair that with everything that's taken place in the last month to see what makes sense. Someone whose name I can't read, I apologize, I can't read Cyrillic, but they're saying, comment on the 101st Airborne in Odessa. You mean the Eagles? So 101st Airborne is U.S. Army, then they have the 82nd as well. But 101st, I don't know what they're doing in Odessa. Do you mean are you talking about that training video? Wasn't there a video that came out? Let me just pull this up, one sec. Or are you saying they've actually deployed them there? I saw a video with CBS or yeah, I think it's this video. One sec.
Today, a senior...
The Screaming Eagles, the 101st Airborne Division. Yeah, so this is... It's from CBS. I found the video. Okay, so let's just take a quick look at this video. The 101st Airborne Division, also nicknamed the Screaming Eagles. It's a famous paratrooper division in the American Army that was formed during World War II, and apparently they've been deployed now to Ukraine's border. Okay, so let's take a quick look at this video. It's from CBS. I don't know why the video's not playing. Give me a sec. I'm going to try this again.
Today, a senior U.S. government...
All right, there we go. 1 second.
Today, a senior U.S. government official rejected a new claim by Russia's defense minister. He claimed that Ukraine is preparing to detonate a radioactive dirty bomb with Western help on its own territory. Well, bombs did, in fact, target Ukraine today. They were Russian. This aftermath in the southern city of Mykolaiv. Right now, the United States has about 100,000 troops in Europe. CBS's Charlie D'Agata is with some of them along Romania's border with Ukraine.
U.S. F-18 fighter jets take flight off the deck of the USS George H.W. Bush in the Adriatic Sea, taking the lead in NATO exercises dubbed Neptune Strike in support of European allies. NATO released this footage of American F-22 fighter jets in formation with Italian Eurofighters and Polish F-16s, even MiG-29s over the skies of Poland. It coincides with 2 weeks of NATO nuclear training drills currently underway. While on the ground, we joined America's most forward troops near the Ukrainian border. The 101st Airborne Division from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, now headquartered in Europe for the first time since World War II. With Colonel Edwin Mathaidis and Brigadier General John Lubis, we board Black Hawk helicopters to the edge of NATO territory.
Why is it necessary to have the 101st here? We bring a unique capability from our air assault capabilities. It's also incredibly meaningful to us to return to Europe after 80 years away.
With the Ukrainian border less than 5 miles away, we reach the forward operating site, where soldiers of the 101st and Romanian troops unleashed a live-fire assault on targets in a simulated battle. This is exactly the kind of combat scenario Ukrainian forces are facing every single day. The big difference here is these Romanian troops are backed up with U.S. military firepower.
Every shot has to count. Every training event has to be the best we could do. It's something that our allies want to emulate, and then, of course, our adversaries are watching.
A show of force for America's allies and adversaries alike. Charlie Daggett, CBS News, near the Ukrainian border, Romania.
Man, it sounds so tacky. A show of force for America's allies and enemies alike. Okay, yeah, you got very big cojones. Well done. So I'll give you Scott Ritter's comments on this NATO nuclear drills, because keep in mind, for the last 2 weeks, roughly last 2 weeks, they've been holding this Operation Steadfast Noon. Okay, and it's basically a nuclear drill. Okay, they're simulating, they're doing a rehearsal, an exercise, military exercise of NATO, basically NATO's ability to wage a nuclear war. And I mean, just think of the ramifications. It's like, imagine if Russia came to, I don't know, let's say they came to somewhere near Canada with, nuclear bombers and about 30 other countries, and held a drill there of a simulation with, simulating a nuclear war with the United States. Like, put yourself in the shoes of the Russians for just 1 second and think like how threatening that looks. And they do this all the time, man. This is not new, huh? They do this all the time. The fact that they decided to do it anyway, amid, Biden's comments, where he's saying that we're closer to Armageddon since 1962, we're the closest to nuclear war that we've ever been. Like, just think of how reckless that is. Yeah. Here, let me show you what Scott wrote. So he did this for Consortium. He says, Steadfast Noon is nothing more than NATO training to wage nuclear war against Russia. Nuclear war against Russia. The readers should let that sink in for a moment. Yeah, they should. But don't worry, NATO spokesperson Lungsku assured the rest of the world that the purpose of Steadfast Noon is to ensure that NATO's nuclear warfighting capability remains safe and effective. It is a routine exercise, not linked to any current world events. Moreover, no real nuclear weapons will be used, just fake ones. Nothing to worry about here. I mean, this is like, they put a machine gun in a monkey's hand. They think that the Russians don't mind it because it's routine and the weapons are fake. Wow. So Stoltenberg, who's the head of NATO, he said that these drills were an important deterrence mechanism in the face of Russian, quote-unquote, veiled nuclear threats. But they weren't related to any current world events. So do you see the hypocrisy there? Like, on one hand, they say, well, look, we have to hold these drills because Russia is making nuclear threats. And then when you say, yeah, but isn't that dangerous? Doesn't it provoke Russia that you're doing this in their backyard? Say, no, it's nothing to do with any world events. It's just routine. Well, which one is it? It's either related to what's happening or it isn't. It is. It certainly is. But they, it's again this like infallible mentality. We can do no wrong. Russia's provocative. We are peaceful. Russia's aggressive. We are defensive. It's always the same shit, right? We can do no wrong. So for me, this is much more significant than just having the 101st Airborne Division there, because Europe has always had tens of thousands of American troops stationed there since World War II. And yeah, changing the headquarters of the 101st, fine, yes, it's significant, but these drills are provocation, and they do this all the time. I remember when Trump was about to leave office, like in December 2020, he started like flying nuclear bombers, not over Iran, but like right next to their airspace. Nuclear bombers. They call it a show of force. It's not provocation, it's a show of force. You see again the wording and the language. It's just a drill. It's just an exercise. It's a show of force. And then they make the Russians out to be the aggressive ones. Listen, man, when it comes to nuclear weapons, I never, show me one statement where Putin is saying, we're going to nuke you. He's not saying that. He says, if you use nukes, we'll use them in response. which is, this is normal. Everyone understands this since 1945, right? Since the Cold War, that there's mutually assured destruction. He didn't really need to say it, but he was just kind of, saying that it's not a bluff. Like, don't even think about it, because our weapons are bigger and they're better, and we have more of them than you. And when NATO is holding these drills there, I mean, I don't know how anyone can look at that and say it's not provocative. It's extremely provocative. And it's like having U.S. carriers in the Sea of China. This is provocative. Try doing that with the U.S. and see what they do to you. Try going to the Florida Keys, or I don't know, near Hawaii, and hold a nuclear drill with Russia and China, and just see what the Americans do. Just see what the Americans do. The Solomon Islands were just contemplating a security partnership with the Chinese, which maybe would result in a Chinese base there. Maybe. And the Americans went bananas. And they sent a delegation there to put the president in his place and all this shit. So just imagine the roles reversed and the reaction. And then you can see what hypocritical bullshit this is. A drill. All right, guys. Got 1,000 people watching. Thank you so much. That's it from me. If you want to support the show, please consider donating on PayPal, or just even liking the video and sharing it helps the channel. Okay, so just commenting, liking, interacting in any way helps the channel a lot. Thank you, Clodix, for your donation on YouTube for the super chat. I appreciate the super sticker. And Faizan says that there was a Netflix. So this is about the assassinated journalist Sharif. He was working on a documentary which will be on Netflix. It's called Behind Closed Doors. That's good to know, and I can't wait to see it. I'm trying to think if I forgot anything else. Oh yeah, Claudia was kind enough to send me the Patreon thing. 1 second, I'll just put it up on the screen. So right now we are at 848. I think so anyway, unless somebody joined while I was speaking. Let's take a look. Very good. Hey, we got a bunch of people on Patreon. Thank you guys so much. So I want to say thank you to Hadi, to Greg, Eugene, and K-Sun. Thank you all for signing up on Patreon. That must mean we're at 852. So I appreciate that very much. Here's a crab dance for you guys. Everybody show them some love.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard. And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead, you have fucking crossed the line, claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch off.
Thank you for Iron Dome, which is a technical marvel.
والله انت كلاب بصراحة يعني. ماشي نشتغل عادي.
We lied, we cheated, we stole.
China.
And you ain't black.
There's always the macro, and then there's the micro.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
You talking to me?
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'll have 2 number 9s. Number 9 large.
we got him.
Myself, I know it's not.
I've fallen, and I can't get up. Disgusting!
Why you take that? Why, you're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. Okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you.
All right, there we go. Thank you guys so much. I'm so happy you all tuned in. Remember to hit the bell icon so you get notifications. And if you don't want to do that, you can sign up by email or on Telegram. So every time I go live, you'll get a notification that I'm live. So I always want to make sure you guys are able to tune in when I'm going live. It's very, very important. So thanks again for everything, guys. I really appreciate it. And I'll catch you guys next time. Thank you for your support. Take care. Ma salame. Bye-bye. In the last couple of months, you've seen them sanction Russia, and what has that done? It's driven the value of the ruble up, the euro and the dollar are down. Russia has made even more money than it was making before because the Europeans are still buying the oil. The rest of the world is still buying the oil, and the price of oil and the price of gas have gone up. So even if Russia's selling less oil and less gas, the fact that the price has gone up means that Russia's making more, there's more revenue, okay? So they've come up with a new plan. This is their new brilliant plan. The crude cap applying from December 5th, and the refined products to follow from February 5th, 2023. If you want to go and move Russian oil, you need to get a ship, and you need to get that ship and the cargo insured. The idea is that they will refuse to move your Russian oil unless you bought it at a price per barrel that is below this threshold. I can already tell you one thing, the Chinese are never going to go along with this price cap. A price cap on Russian oil without the price of oil skyrocketing. It's just not happening, man. The EU now wants to replace Russian gas with Israeli gas, right? There's nothing better than some stolen Lebanese gas. And the Israelis are trying their best to block the nuclear deal because, you know, if sanctions are lifted on Iran, Iran is free to sell its oil and gas. Remember, Iran has the biggest gas reserves in the world after Russia. And what do the Israelis do? They straight up just send a giant ship to start extracting the gas. I mean, this thing is a behemoth. You know, Nasrallah, who is the Secretary General of Hezbollah, he threatened them that if they extract any gas before they solve the maritime border dispute, there's going to be a huge response. If Israel messes with Lebanon and starts extracting gas before this issue has been resolved, they're going to strike the Israeli gas rigs. And no company is going to want to come anywhere near that because it's a war zone then. Let me show you this opinion piece I found in The Guardian. The ruble is soaring and Putin is stronger than ever. Our sanctions have backfired. Wow, you don't say. Took you 5 months to realize that? Western sanctions against Russia are the most ill-conceived and counterproductive policy in recent international history. The reality of sanctions on Russia is that they invite retaliation. Putin is free to freeze Europe this winter. He has slashed supply from major pipelines such as Nord Stream 1 by up to 80%. The chief beneficiary is none other than Russia, whose energy exports to Asia have soared, driving its balance of payments into unprecedented surplus. Man, seriously, did I not say exactly all of this months ago?